are going to go through, I believe we're going to go through the portrait and people categories. I did a lot of images from the annual electronic competition. And then we did some from still life and pictorial as well. So um, what I'm going to do is give me a second and I'll share the screen. I did get some extra images from a couple of people, and I think I had some images from last time. So hopefully everybody's on here and we'll try and get to those as well. Category wise, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the images in the category than doing so much discussing about the image itself. And we'll kind of see um, time wise where we end up with. All righty. Uh, we got a lot of people on here. How many people are on here?
It's quite a few.
Wow, 26. I think that's the most ever. Well, I'm trying to get some things to reopen again.
Mm.
Uh, is everybody aware that we are going to have Royce Bear Friday night at Camera Club?
Yep.
Uh,
Yep. Yeah.
I do suspect, not putting anybody down if anybody's on here that did a program this year, but I do suspect even over me, he's probably going to be one of the better programs for the year. So you might want to make sure you show up to that.
And we can invite guests, I'm sure, right? Program
Yes.
meeting?
Yes, we can always have a guest. We like people to come in, be a guest, and join. Most of the time we don't want to just to keep coming as a guest forever.
Nope,
But yeah,
absolutely.
of course we can have a guest. Actually, Royce, I believe, is bringing a couple guests as well because he asked me if it was allowed or they had to join to come to his program.
Yeah.
So we'll see. All right. I'm kind of in the background. I think you guys can still see me, but I can't see you right now just because I'm trying to get these folders back open again. So, da-da-da-da. Okay, I got this going. Let me come back to you and I will share my screen and share. I believe you guys can see everything now. Just confirming, you guys can see.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
See several pictures.
So yeah, I'm using Photo Mechanic. It's just usually what I use when I kind of go through and edit and I do my metadata, and I'm just using that today versus usually I just put them all in a folder, but I created a couple folders this way because I can click through easier. So this is pictorial category. I'm just going to click through with the ones I selected that were entered in pictorial. And I don't have that screen open, but pictorial in our club description is an image that really portrays a mood to the viewer. In competition wise, it's the mood that the viewer, which is the judge, what they're feeling is how they score and rate your images. My opinion, real quick, this is a great pictorial right here. This is not a great pictorial. And I don't want anyone to take comments as like, oh my God, he hates my picture. That's not it. I'm just talking only about the pictorial category and the representation and the feeling I see from a judge's standpoint. So very good mood, would score high. Not so much of a mood. Great picture of the barn. I love the colors, great framing. Just there's not a big mood. So this might be better served in a documentary, or it might score higher in that documentary category. Again, this has a good mood. You have a good feeling when you see it. Almost anytime you see sand dunes with the footsteps going through, you almost, have that, the sun's coming down and that feeling of faith, because a lot of books and a lot of churches use images like this. So this portrays a good mood, a good feeling. Again, this one I chose because it's red rock and we see it all the time. And this is a great example of entering a so common image that it scores high because it looks different than what we're used to seeing when we see that. You know, I mean, I drive to Valley Fire literally twice a month, if not more. And Red Rock's right behind it. I've just gotten away from Red Rock. I don't like it. I don't like the crowds. I don't like the rules they have out there these days with trying to get into the park. So I'd rather drive the extra half hour and go to, Valley of Fire. But this is a great, again, a great example. And this did do well in competition. Oddly enough, I know in a couple discussions we've discussed PSA a few times, and if you're in PSA groups or entering back east, this scores bam. It hits high scores. It's a great image, great lighting, great time of day, and it's southwest. If you enter southwest stuff out here in the west, Nevada and California, even some of Reno, we see that all the time. So it doesn't always score as high, or if it's going to score high, it needs to be like this. It needs to be something that really portrays a different feeling than what we're used to seeing. And that's why I felt this is a great pictorial, great category for this image. Um, Good feeling here. This one, it's kind of missing a little bit on technical quality. We need to darken the trees in the sky and the mountains in the top. The color and the technical quality in the reflection, the reflection is a lot better. It's got a little bit more saturation, a little bit better view of the mountains where we lost a little bit in the top. But I still do get a good feeling about this. Um, this image I love. I think this would have done better again, this one in the documentary. I think it's a great story. Um, it's great. These trips are great to go on. When you're doing these trips, and I know at least I believe, and I could be wrong, and if anybody wants to yell at me, you can. This is one of the setup shots when you do these trips. And and when you're on these trips, don't be afraid, especially if you're paying for the setup, don't be afraid to, you know, ask for things. You've probably got a host or you got somebody running it. When I do my Montana wildlife shots or pictures or groups, I ask for things. I'm like, hey, we did a horse run. What'd you think of it? I'm like, well, I want the horses to run this way. They went over here and I want them to go this way. That way, me and all my attendees get good images. The only problem I see with this is the guys are kind of crumped up. If the guy in the blue was laying down out and a little bit like the guy in the white, I think it would have flowed a little bit better, but it kind of stops at him even though they're looking that direction. Also in pictorial, if you were going to re-enter this in pictorial, you can fix the sand, the steps in the sand. That's not a problem at all, and I think it would make the whole image look a little bit smoother. Um, a good feeling. The clouds, the reflections, the whole cityscape, it kind of flows together. I would maybe crop it just a little bit more at the bottom and maybe just a little bit more at the top because even though the reflections aren't like mirror reflections, they're a very good feeling of reflection because you still have that movement in the water. And I think that's what gives it that good feeling. Now, another image with the same, I mean, almost identical. This one has clouds, a good scenery. This one has clouds, a good scenery. This one has reflections, which kind of gives us a visual of maybe there's something in the foreground when there's truly not. This whole image is a flat plane. This one has foreground. But again, I think this one doesn't set as much a mood as the last one. Like I said, both great pictures, good technical qualities. I probably wouldn't have the lighthouse right dead in the middle. I'd try to move that off to one side or the other to give it a little bit more compositional dynamic. And
Which
that would
which way would you go, Jerome? Would you go left or right?
uh
More
I
water or
I
more foliage?
I kind of think I would cut the foliage off a little bit and go closer to the house because I think there's a little bit more interest out here in the water. And if you cut the water off, I don't think there's as much interest in that foliage. Cool. Now, I'm just going to go real slow through any of these. If anybody has a comment, you can speak up. Nobody has to. And by the way, I believe this one, and let me go ahead and do those real quick. This got a second in annual competition for monochrome. Um, takes my papers look like this, so it just takes me a minute. We had, so we did have a lot of images tonight. So this, I believe, didn't get a ribbon. And again, I think it probably should have, but I think category wise. So here's another thing to think about. Our judges should be, my feeling, not anybody else's, my feeling, our judges should be more strict on things that are in categories. And I think we should either score lower or move it out of the category, say it doesn't fit, whatever that may be. I truly believe that. Now, when we do outside competitions, we are looking for a different point of view. But even though we're looking for a different point of view and we're looking for new judging for our images for that year, we also do hand those judges our guideline criteria, how we judge, and we also hand them the categories and category descriptions. So even outside judges sometimes will look at images and it's just an out, because it doesn't really fit the category. So that's something always to consider. And then we have I believe like the print competition, the judges were complete opposite. They didn't understand our categories and didn't even care to understand our categories, which and sometimes that can be good because we have a whole change of who the winners are. And like this competition, this annual competition is one of the most diverse competitions I've seen in a long time because usually it's one or two people that are getting four or five best categories and four or five first places, and that did not happen this time. I think the most anybody, one person got was two. So that gave us a really diverse set of winners, which is great. I think that is awesome that you guys accomplished that. Moving on, flowing water did get an honorable mention. Again, I feel this does fit the category. And here's one where I feel strongly about fits the category, and it did get thrown out. Judges just said no, you know. So you never know what judges are going to think, but you always want to put yourself in the best position to try and win that. Speaking of winning a category or first place, you know, many of us enter differently. Some people enter two or three images in one category to try and dominate that category, which is great. And then some of us will try and enter only a single image in 8 different categories, hoping and trying to win that first place in, as many categories as they can. And that's going back to what I said about this overall competition. I thought it was amazing that when I walked into the library to see all the winners, all the different names. It was great. I really thought that was perfect. Okay, I am going to switch gears now. Pictorial. So let's go to still life. Still life was, I think it was kind of a hard category for the judges themselves, just to judge. in their mind, this was still life. Now, I know a flower, I believe, won the still life category. Let's see. Yeah, so this image got the best of category for still life, but they really thought things like this were more of the still life value. And that's just me kind of listening to them talk. Judges this time were really quiet. Sometimes, at print competition, judges are really loud and overbearing about their comments, but it's always a little bit different in what they see, what their view is. So um, let me go back to the beginning. So these are all still life images. When you do a still life, like this is a great image. I understand this. I see what we're getting at. Um, you know, this photographer is kind of a photojournalistic, documentary style photographer anyway, and that's how I would take this image, kind of a documentation. It is a still life. The difference is in documentation or documentary, you don't really have control. You're shooting the scene as much as possible as is, and you got to wait for things to be good, whether it's the light or, the time of day, or if you have moving elements in there, you got to wait for them to move into the elements that you want for it to be a great image. Um, but when you're just doing a still life, still life, you still have control. I know the description says arrangement of objects found or made, with lighting or no lighting, blah, blah, blah. But you still have the power to fix things. And I mean, in this one, just maybe cropping out this side makes it a much stronger image. It's just still a still life, but with all the stuff in the background over here that distracts, a lot of times you get judges, they see the idea, but they see that, and then it's just out. And in monthly competition, you're still going to get a value assessed to it. In an outside competition, since the judges don't score images, it just goes out, and then they never see it again. As long as you can give the judges enough to go, let's hold it and bring it back so we can look at it when we get through the rest of the category, you have a better chance, if that makes sense. Um, Again, trying to dominate category is good, but then also in some instances, like, this and this came from the same um, photographer, that they felt there was too much in the category, so one's going to get out. And then I believe this one did score a ribbon. Again, found things, in a still life. I think this could use a little bit of repair. This orange blob, and I know it's another flower that's probably laying in there blowing in the wind, but I think this flower kind of takes away from the whole image. These two don't. They kind of add, they kind of give you some triangle angle dynamics. The nice bright orange is always good with the yellows, but I think this here just kind of takes away. And I don't know if there's a way for you to clean that up, or if you had another image that wasn't in there, or you just have to crop. I'll talk about these two for a minute. And again, not trying to compare photographers, but there's a totally different angle of view. The angle of view is giving this a lot more dynamic to the image versus this one. This is kind of bullseye, and this one has a dynamic angle to it. So right away, you get a better feeling, a better story, a better angle of view, how this is going. You feel like the photographer was taking more time. Reds, and especially pinks, are very hard to shoot. So they already have a lot of kind of saturation to them. So you almost need to desaturate reds and pinks when they're in your images. And that's really only happened, or it happens to me, I should say, maybe not all of you, but it really only happens a lot with digital. When I did film and stuff like that, I didn't feel like I was getting that same range of, you know, almost an HDR fill, even if you're not doing it just with those colors. Uh, Great image. The judges loved it, but it didn't win the category. It got a second place. Actually, I think it tied for a second with another one. But not the point. The point is this has great mood. It has a great feeling. I really think instead of still life, this could have won the pictorial category. Because again, judges really liked it. They kept talking about it. They brought it back a couple times, but then in the end, they didn't feel like it was a still life. So sometimes it's a matter of presentation as well. And still life for me, I'll tell you a little secret. I don't always pick my own pictorial images. I will ask somebody else, what do you think of this? And they're like, oh, I like this or I like that. And if I get someone that goes, oh, I love the mood of this, bam, I'm putting it in pictorial because I want to see how the judges, you know, respond to that. If I got someone outside of myself to say that gives them a good mood, then I almost feel like sometimes it's going to score good in a pictorial category. Um, Definitely a still life, but I almost feel this would fathom better in an abstract because I love the colors. I love the beads ready to explode into a flower. But I felt that the still life, it didn't have a lot of impact as a still life. I think it has great creative value, not in a creative sense, but with the colors around it. But I think it would do better in an abstract category. I don't even know if we had a lot of abstracts this time. Um, Again, I'm going to go back to control. Still life, you have a lot of control. So this is kind of back to the same thing with this is a great looking drink. Um, I I love your lighting. The lighting worked out well in the top here, and the mint might be a little bit hot, but that's something we can work with. I think the problem is just a little bit distracting with these lines and these lines, and even that top. I'm guessing that's either the shelf over the bar or something like that. But it's all kind of visual, taking you away. And that was something that one of the judges had said, I don't like the stuff in the background. The drink looks great. So by me listening to the judges is kind of why I picked a few of these categories to talk about. And these categories here are also where the judges struggled in trying to choose, the placement of images. So, um, but again, still life, you have control. You can move this drink anywhere. Well, hopefully it's your drink and you move it. I move somebody else's drink, they might get upset, but you can move it around. And I do this when I go out to dinner. It usually kind of irritates everybody that's with me because I'm like, don't touch anything. We get appetizers. Don't anybody eat the appetizers until I take my phone picture. uh, Great image. And I think the telephone. Do, 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 Oh, let me find it. I love the wood. I love the broken light that comes through here on the phone. This is a great find. This is this is just having a great eye to be able to see this. Yeah, this did get a ribbon. This got second place, but great picture. You know, I might have done a little bit more with cropping just to turn it a little bit. I feel like the phone is a little bit centered, but again, that's me. Judges liked it. It got a ribbon. So, kudos to the maker for this. And then we're just back to that one. So I'm just going to flip through these real slow. If anybody has a question or a comment. on any of the images. We can go back to anything too. If somebody thought of a question now that we didn't have later or earlier. And like I said, I believe there was a couple images in still life that I took out because I just didn't see that people responded in time. So
Jerome,
if
Jerome,
yours
can you
if
go
yours
back
got
to
taken out, I
the
apologize now. I'm sorry, Clayton. Go ahead again.
yeah, can you go back to the sunset one on the beach? There it is.
Yep.
Black and white. Any thoughts? Tones?
I would have to see it, but it could be something that would, it could be something that would work. I mean, if we're going to talk about the image a little bit and do a little critique, I would take the horizon line out of the middle. Even though you have this great boat that's rising up, I would probably
You read
come.
about Samson, you read about his birth.
It's a, that's that's not mine.
Not mine either. No,
Um,
I've heard that rule. You know, the horizon either needs to be near the top or
Yeah,
down near
well, I
the bottom,
mean,
but never in the middle.
saving grace is that the boat is the foreground of the horizon, and it does break the horizon. So that is
Okay.
awesome. That helps a lot. But I still think I would have tried to go down a little bit lower and brought that horizon up a little bit. Cropping, I probably wouldn't want to crop bottom or top now, after the fact, just because you can't move the horizon enough in
Yep.
the whole image. But you could go off a little bit left or right just to, adjust the image out of the center. Other than that, again, everybody really loved it. This was a great image, and it had that ooh ah effect when it came up. So, oop, let me close this one. Okay, we are gonna go to. I did pictorial still life. Okay, people and portrait. I just threw all these into one group. Um, we'll go through and talk about everything. So I'm going to go real quick and just do this was in people, this was in people, this was in people, this was in people, people, people. So that was the people category. Um, with these three here, and probably even this one. And actually, I mean, even this one, sometimes you can have a good people shot that really looks like a portrait. But the difference is, these don't really have a lot of action. I think this is probably one of the best people shots out of this category. And the reason I think that is because when I'm looking at people, I think that people should have a little bit of action, whether they're telling a story. It should be more of a photojournalistic image where portraiture is a little bit more,
And the lemon flower is
portraiture is a
the
little bit
lemon
more
is
a
impossible.
pictorial. Okay, so what I was saying was, people I feel has a little bit more action to it. Whoop, this one here, there's a little bit more action, a little bit storytelling and portraiture. And I'm not saying portraiture can't have storytelling, and I'm not saying people can't have pictorial feel to it. I'm just saying the portrait category, you get a little bit more of a pictorial feel. It's a little bit more of a mood. You can definitely have movement and storytelling because obviously this is a dancer, even though it's entitled dancer. She's a dancer. You kind of see it with both of these, and although one of these did get a ribbon, I feel all three of these would have done better in the portrait category. Um, this one here, great image. I was there when this happened, so I kind of know what was going on here. And not a lot of control because we're just using the light coming into the courthouse, but we are directing her a little bit, for movements. We laid out the dress. So we do have a little control over this image versus this one that is a true people shot, good, decent lighting. Uh, the background, I understand he's in a market. The background kind of works and kind of distracts at the same time. So that's going to be, that's going to be one of those images that a judge likes it or a judge doesn't like it. There's no in between. This one here, you know, it almost looks. I think the title is um, looking out the window, which I was going to say, this is probably a little bit of window light coming in. Um, Even with window light, you can still control a little bit. Now, if you don't know the guy and you're trying to sneak a picture, kind of like street photos, then sometimes you kind of have to get what you get and just hope for the best. This one here, back again, I just feel that this one is too much about the dress. I like the image, I like the model. I photographed this same picture, even though this is not my image. But I think this one in a people or a portrait category doesn't work because it's too much about the dress than it is about her. And that doesn't mean go throw it in commercial and it's going to get, 27 because I don't know if it's that strong of an image to sell the dress either. So just putting that out there. I'm going to go to the next images and then we can talk about all of them again. This is the portrait category. Portrait, 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 and portrait. Um, so let's go back here. This is a portraiture. Now, I don't know if this maker had full control because it does look like it's kind of lighting that's coming through a window or through a hallway or something, but they might have a giant softbox right here in front of them. So if they did that, then it's amazing. If they just got the window light or this hallway light or something and you chose it, then it's good lighting. It works very well with this. I know there's a little bit of distraction in the background, but this distraction kind of adds to the story because this guy, with the feathers and the hair and everything, adds a bit of flamboyancy to the image where that distraction in the background kind of counteracts or works with that flamboyancy and it makes it a great image. I believe this one got first. It might have got the best category. I shouldn't say that before I get there. Did get a ribbon. I know that. I would have to look that up again. I think it got a second place. I'm not sure which one got first. We might not. I might have had to take the first one out. That's why. Okay, puppy pictures. I always struggle with animal pictures and portraiture. So I mostly let me back up with that. I always struggle with wildlife pictures in the portrait category because I've seen some great pictures of lions and tigers and bears, but I don't feel that there's any control over what you're doing outside of pushing the shutter on your camera and hoping for the good light. I've been on Africa trips where at least I can have the guy drive around. I want to be on this side, or I want the sun on that side, or I want the sun behind the animal. But I don't feel that that's good for the portrait category. That's great for wildlife, and then of course, if it's domesticated in some way, it's great for animals, pets. Um, Unfortunately, this is probably somebody's puppy and they love this puppy, and this is a great picture. I have a bunch of these on my phone. I just don't enter them because it's not a great competition entry. You want to have more, this would probably do good. This probably would have been good in animals, pets. I don't even remember that category from this competition, but this would have done a lot better in the animal pets category than the portraiture. And again, I want to say real quick because I know some people just want to enter 8 different categories. I do the same thing. So, I do 4 or 5 great categories, and then I have that same issue with trying to get an image and I'm like, I'm just gonna that are in this category and hope for the best. And that's okay. I'm not trying to take that away from anybody. I'm just trying to, go through some of the commenting and judges' thoughts and put that out there in the open. So hopefully that, these talks like this benefit you guys. That's why. Again, I think this one was just kind of thrown out because I'm not going to say it's not a portrait because who says a portrait has to be looking at the camera? This is very well a great environmentally kind of portrait situation, but in this instance, it didn't make the cut. But I love the colors, I love all that, and I do think it would have done better in that people category because I think it has a good feel to it. I think just the judges didn't see it as a portrait. This here again got a ribbon. Um, I think there's a little bit of control. There's thought that goes into it because I'm sure you weren't driving down the road and then you said, "Oh, look at this girl standing out in the Salt Lake on a box." So thought went into it. You have a sense of control, even though I feel it's just the sunlight that's coming in. I don't feel like there's any reflectors or any extra lighting, and there could be, but I feel like it's just the sun coming across and but having the box there, having her posing gives you a sense of feel. And one thing I do want to mention is I like that the horizon goes through her body and not through her head. I always struggle a lot with that on any kind of people picture, but especially on portraiture where you have control. So this is handled very well. Again, again here. So no horizon line through the head. It's got to be below the shoulders or above the head. That's just a caveat I have that really kills me when I see that happen. Here is a lot of control because you can see that they're using a light from the side. We had this was at Cancun workshop, so again, I was there. I shot some of these pictures, but we have that lighting come across. We have her posing. I'm taking the time to fix the dress and all that stuff as well. So very good for the event. I don't know if this one. This got a ribbon. This got an honorable mention. So, very good job. Any questions? I'm just going to go through, but is there any questions on people or portraiture? Um, I did talk to a couple of people that had that very nice portraits that were in a couple of them here, and they're new, first time entering, so they actually just didn't understand category wise or didn't see all the categories listed. So if there's any new people or beginners, I am doing a beginners group and we're going to talk about the categories. Um, it's a welcome to Nevada Camera Club beginners type group. Again, you don't have to be a beginner to come to my groups because I'm also doing a Zoom for beginners and I'm going to do a little bit of editing. And I will show you some of my images and I'm going to go through and edit a whole image. I'll try and I use Photoshop. I know, not everybody does, but I'll go through and show you like just some easy edits to easily fix some skies and stuff like that. A little bit of dodging and burning, if anybody knows what that is. If you don't, then you do need to come. Okay.
Hey, Jerome,
Yes.
a question about this image right here. I just wanted to comment that, going through all your screen shows the histograms for each of these photos, and this is the best histogram that I've seen.
Oh, you're seeing the histograms you said?
Yes,
Oh, I think I have all my speakers are there, so I'm actually yeah, I got the speakers there, so I wasn't looking at the histogram.
but I mean that's great though. I mean, what
No,
I'm
that's a
getting at.
very good point. I'm glad you brought that up, Clayton. So let's go through one more time and we'll just look at the histograms.
I don't see the histograms. Where are they?
They
No,
are
right.
all the way in the bottom right corner.
Oh, okay, there you
And
go.
I have it set to color. So that's why you see yellows, greens, blues, reds, and whites. It's reading all the colors in the histogram. So obviously you see this one's on the mostly on the dark side. This one here is mostly on the light side. And the reds are really peeking out. I'm guessing the blue, there's a lot of blue in the tile. Must be some greens in the tile.
I mean, you don't always depend on the histogram, but if you got one that's in the middle and it looks good, then that might be your image.
Yeah, and these are all good. So the ones that scatter and spike a little bit more, they just have more contrast. And like this other one you were talking about, there's not a lot of contrast. It's kind of a kind of subdued image, and you see that in the histogram. Cool, very good. Okay, good point, Clayton. I appreciate that. Okay, we're going to close this one. Okay, so that was all the images from the competitions. Um, we had this image. This was from a monthly portrait competition. And there was a couple questions from somebody. It wasn't even from the maker of the image, but I thought we'd throw it in here anyway to look at it, talk about it. Um, I mean, if we go back and we talk about control, this was at the Alien event for B&C Camera, and there's a lot going on. We had lighting everywhere. We had, 4 or 5 models at one time, so you had a couple of photographers each shooting each model, and she's kind of moving. So I don't, I'm not saying it's not a portrait worthy image. I'm saying uh, you know, portrait, you don't really have the control of this image like portrait says you should, but it's got portrait values to it. I love the colors. I love the look on her face. I wish she was turned just a little bit more so that back eye is not so much in the corner. And then I wish she would have brought her hand down a little bit so it doesn't come straight out of her head. With all of that in tune, I still think this would score higher in a people category. I just feel like it has a little bit more of the storytelling than it does of the mood. I mean, it has a mood because all the colors kind of give you that mood. The red machinery in the background, which is that tow truck. It's got good things working with it. It's just tough. Um, with this said, I want to open. Now, I have a couple other images, but I'm going to open something else because when I go out and shoot a model, let's see, I gotta go. Oh, too far. Go back. Okay, so when I go out and shoot a model, it looks a little bit like this. This is it's 103 images. So I pose her. I tell her where to look. If I want her eyes open or I want her eyes closed. Now this is selected, so this isn't even all the images I shot because we probably shot about 500. But even from this, I will narrow down to this is kind of my best picks. So I will kind of get to the best picks, what I think I like the most out of the whole selection. We did 3 outfits, and this is the images from 3 of the outfits. Couple different locations, couple different lighting. I added light. We picked places that reflected light. I had the light behind her. So yeah, most of these are non-edited. There is a few that have just a little bit of edits. And even because this is going to the same model and the same designer with these three outfits, even indoors, I chose to do the same look of lighting that I was doing outdoors. So let's go back real quick to the top. So that very hard sun look. And I did the same thing on the indoors with the strobe, which is almost that very hard sun look. So for me,
What lens?
I'm sorry.
What lens?
This is the 24-105, and I shoot Canon, so 24-105 on all these images. So that one's edited, and it's from this one. So really, not a lot of editing for me. I just darkened the wood in the background, and I took out a couple of holes because the holes are too big and they distract for me. Window light. So this is a strobe. You can see the strobe down in the corner. You see the leg of the strobe. And then in the same building, these are all window light now with no strobe. And again, the same image here is this one. All I did was crop and darken the background a little bit. Most everything else is shot as is. Couple funny faces. So, but I will go through what I edited on a couple of these images whenever our next the beginners group. I have two beginners groups. I just don't have the dates in front of me. So one is going to be a Zoom for editing, and then the one that is for welcome to Nevada Camera Club, and we're going to go through categories and talk about entering, talk about judging and scoring and all that stuff. So that's for if you were.
That's the 14th. That's the 14th, Jerome,
Okay.
at 2 p.m.
14th will be in person at my office, and if you didn't get the newsletter, we'll get an e-notice out pretty soon, and then if you still don't get it, then ask somebody. So anyway, I just wanted to show you that real quick. That just wanted to show you what I'm going through. So when I'm judging portraiture and I talk about I don't like how the hand is or something, that's why I will shoot so many. This model, Brooke, she likes to move a lot. So, but I'm very forceful where I don't lose control. I want her to move a little bit, but I don't want her to move a lot. I want her to move a little bit and slow so that I have control over my whole photo shoot. Oops, I don't want to do that. Nope. Okay, we're going to go to one more section. And I think it is. I think it's this one. So, portraiture. Now, I put this in a people category. So, even though I controlled this, and what I mean by controlling this is there was a couple of us shooting pictures, but we talked to the guy. We said, "Hey, we need you to turn to the side. We need you facing the window. The top of his head is facing the window." And then we had him pick up one of these cups and tilt it at enough angle that it shined the light up to his face. So I have 100% control of this, but I figured this might be a problem in portraiture because it's telling a story of what he's doing. And that's why I say, even for me, I put it in people, and I know it got a first place. I don't remember what the score was, but putting it in people because it has that strong story. I think that helps the image, and I think it got a higher score because of that. I don't think it would have got a bad score, but I still think it scored higher or to its maximum potential by being in that. And that's why sometimes you have to decipher just a little bit between portraiture and people. You want more action, more story with the people categories and images you're putting in there, and you want more of a mood and a feeling in portraiture. And that's been in a lot of competitions, even the ones I've judged that I haven't entered. This was just in a little while ago, and again, you know, I had I controlled this enough to where I was telling him what to do, how to do it. I mean, he knows how to play his cello, but I'm like, I want you to be really abrupt. I want you to just yanking the bow over your head, and that's what he's doing. So when he yanks the bow over his head, his jacket flies up. And then I did put a little bit of HDR, just a HDR on the ground, the clouds, and the cello because it really made the cello pop out. But this is just sun. It's just sun and clouds. A really windy day. You can see all this dust blowing. So we didn't shoot too long. It was kind of a fast shoot to keep the dust out of my cameras mostly. Um, Portraiture. Now you have kind of that mood again. You know, she doesn't really tell a story as much as you have a mood and a feeling. And again, I think this won best of category in the last competition, outside competition. So sometimes it's tough to pick what's the right category, but sometimes you have to just look at your images and how things are going. This I think this was just in the last this last competition. I don't even have my own results written down, but I know it won at least the first place ribbon. Again, I probably took about 600 pictures of this guy. And there's like three or four of us. This was during PSA, and we went to this little town, this colonial town, and this guy was in there working today. So we asked him, can you turn this way so you're facing the window? And again, so we have a little bit of light on him. And then he heated up about three or four of those I forget what he was making. He was making some tools, and we had him heat up like three or four in the hot fire and just wailing away at him. And finally, he said, "Okay, I'm done," because I think we probably would have shot another 200 images. But still trying to get him. I'm shooting in a slow shutter speed, so I'm trying to get the sparks moving, but also trying to get his face and shirt a little bit, so it's in focus. And that's a problem. I've got a good, 500 images that are blurry that aren't any good. But trying to get that one image with him, that face focused, he's biting his tongue, hitting the sparks shooting out there. And I have some that are a little bit slower and the sparks are really flying, but the problem was I didn't get a lot of focus on him. So this is one of the best ones I could get. So let's go real quick I have a couple other images that some people sent in. And we're going to go overtime just a little bit, but we'll be okay. If you got to go, you can run. September and extras. So I don't know if all these people are online, but just some stuff that was submitted. I think this is good for a people category. Definitely not really in control on the lighting or the situation here, but I think it's kind of, so let me back that up a minute because I'm saying it's not a portrait category, but you do see images like this in magazines that are kind of an environmental portrait. And if you're going to try and do that, then you need to back up a little bit so you get a little bit more of those tools and that she's holding a book. I don't know if she's holding the book going through it. And I don't know if she's like trying to tell you something because it almost looks like she might be saying, "Don't take my picture." So be careful of that. But she's got the pin in her shirt. She's got the book in her hand. You got the tools in the background. I'm pretty sure that says nursery on her shirt. So she's probably, working at the nursery. So you could make this a good people kind of category image, or you could also turn it into a portrait kind of category. But I think it needs a little bit more work to it. This is from the portrait group that was meeting there, and we I was part of this group. So what we did with the portrait group is we broke into little mini groups, and then we all had our own model, and then we would switch models once in a while. And in this particular event, I was trying to show a couple of lighting scenarios. So someone had put her in the water right here, kind of a side lighting. Um, I'm going to say preferably for me, this is not preferably lighting. I know she might like this image, and I'm sure the maker who took it is probably happy with it. And there's not a problem with that. When it comes to a competition kind of valued image, I think it's going to struggle a lot because part of it is that side light going across her and making that line across her chest. And also the sun coming across where it basically lights up her nose. I don't feel that that's going to be a good portrait category. And not even because I don't get a lot of storytelling from it. It's not going to be any good in the people category. Um, when we did this, I also took her down to the end of the pool where she turned and the light was in her back. Now, we did some reflectors on her face, and I mean, it was a bright sunny day, so it was really hard for her to see because she's got a little bit lighter eyes. So she was squinting a little bit more. So I don't know if anybody got something more favorable down there. And then we also brought her back on the other side, where there's a tree. So we kind of had her all shaded. And I think truly on one of those sides, it's going to be better lighting for her. Even with side lighting, she's young, she's got great skin, but even with side lighting, you do see all the, you know, imperfections in the skin. So that's just my thoughts on that. This is also from that same portrait group, and the guys running the portrait group, Frank and Gary, they were actually doing different lighting scenarios with lights. At one point, they would set up a lighting scenario and she would hold the card that told you what the lighting was. So, like, there was a Rembrandt lighting, there was a side lighting, there was a butterfly lighting, which is what we have here is the butterfly lighting. So, hopefully everybody that was there took pictures of all those because that way you can go back and reference what kind of light you're using. Um, butterfly lighting is great for models because it's more of a front lighting. Where I was talking about the side lighting, always not being flattering. Um, some people are just like, this girl's beautiful. It's kind of hard to take a bad picture of her, and that's just how some people are. But this lighting in particular is always a lot more flattering because it comes straight from the front, and that way it hides a lot of the perfections, but it still gives detail and dimension. Her dimples look great, her cheeks look great. So, and this is a very nice image. I actually prefer this image over this one. I think this one has, the saturation and stuff I like a lot better versus this one is just kind of a moody black and white. But this is also, great lighting, and that makes a big difference. This one popped in. Um, it's kind of a little slot canyon kind of run. I don't know if black and white is the best for this, but I haven't seen the color, so it might be. I just feel like time of day is really tough with slot canyons. I just did a trip to Antelope Canyon and that time of day, it's really hard. I don't know if you all were there when I did the national parks, talked about national parks and visiting and shooting pictures, but I showed some pictures of the Antelope Canyon, Slot Canyon that we did, and it was kind of like this. The sun just wasn't good, so I was getting, some hot spots on the sides, not really for the best. It was just kind of a struggle. I think, if you were there just a little bit longer and these went away, I think it would be a little bit nicer, kind of subdued, very mid-tone range of grays all the way throughout. But other than that, it's a nice location. Hopefully you can go back. Here we have one's a little bit of wildlife, bird. The splash, with the head going into the water, that splash, I think that's great. Um, but without seeing the whole bird, it's also kind of a funny vantage point because it's cropped in so close. The splash is great, but with just the neck and the two legs, I don't think really adds a lot to the image. Hopefully you got some more things like maybe if that bird pulled a fish out with his, in the middle of his beaks or even a plant root or something. And I think that would be a lot more interesting or interesting aspect to the image and give it more of a dynamic mood. Okay, here we have kind of a landscape. Um, I could be wrong, but I think this is probably around Sedona area. Great sunset. I think this is a very good time of day because I do like the highlights on the side of the mountain, where you have all this other side shaded. If I was going to enter it, I would crop it right here, crop this section out, because otherwise my eye goes down here when my eye should stay up here through all this. I think a little bit of these clouds might just be a little bit too bright, especially right down here. So if we could tone that down, and that's actually something I'm going to talk about in the beginner zoom. So, if you want to do that, or maybe I can get this image from the maker and I can do a little bit on it and show you how I would change it. But crop a little bit here, crop just a little bit up there, and make this more of a slim line. And beautiful image. Uh, Kind of a people kind of portrait kind of thing. But again, I wouldn't put this in portraiture because there's not a lot of control, but I think it's a good people image. I love the lens length and all the bokeh in the water. So me coming from the older area, this is bokeh. The rings, all these rings on the lights are bokeh. Nowadays, a lot of people just call bokeh anything that's blurry in the background. Um, I don't know how we changed the actual definition of bokeh, but that's not my definition of bokeh. This right here is my definition of bokeh. And getting bokeh and proper bokeh and good looking bokeh in your image is also an art form, just like getting a starburst in the sun or in lights, because you know what, aperture you have to be at to get that. Same thing with this. You got to be at a certain focal range as well. So, nice image, kudos. If I was going to enter it, I would try it in the people category and see how it goes from there. One more image in the extras that were sent in. Very nice. Hummingbird shot. For me, I really love this drop of water hitting right in the forehead. I think it's probably getting ready to fall off that flower right on the bird. Um, this is a very, very fast shutter because the wings are stopped and in focus. I think sometimes having, a little bit less shutter where you have a little bit of movement is always a plus. But I'm not saying this is bad. I'm not saying you need to go back and do that. I would try and, if you're going to put this in wildlife, you don't want to edit this out. You're going to have to crop. But I like this, so I wouldn't crop any of that. I would just try and take a couple of these leaves out because If there was more leaves, it would be good. And if there was no leaves, I think it would be good. But just that little bit of leaf is a little bit distracting. So other than that, I think this is a very nice image. Cool. Anybody have any questions about any of these or a comment? Well, we went just a little bit over, but for today, that is all I have for Judge's Corner. So unless there's any questions,
Great job, Jerome. That's all I gotta say. Anybody else?
Thank you, Jerome.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jerome.
Thanks.
you're very welcome.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.